Got to start with the Rangers because quite the bounce back yesterday against the Houston Astros after being no hit on Monday. They bring 11 batters to the plate and score 8 runs in the bottom half of the first inning to jump out to an 8-0 lead on their way to a 10-7 victory. Because wouldn't that be so Rangers to jump out to what was a 9-0 lead and then cough the whole thing up and lose? But they didn't. They got the win, 10-7, and they are the first team since the 1905 Chicago White Sox to record 8 or more runs in the first inning of a game that immediately follows being no hit. So that is peaks and valleys, which feels very Rangers.
Just about as improbable as it was for them to be no hit. Yes, it was a combined no-hitter, but it came at the hands of a guy who entered the game with an over 8 ERA and concluded with a guy making his Major League Baseball debut. But nonetheless, we moved on. Tuesday was a better day. 8 runs, as you said, in the first inning. I thought it was most fitting that Brandon Nimmo was the guy to get that first hit to prevent back-to-back no-hitters. Because if you heard any of the guys talk about what took place after Monday's loss, it was Brandon Nimmo really leading the charge, leading the conversations in the clubhouse, taking ownership as the leader and the voice of which the rest of the guys followed. And I thought it was awesome that he got to be the one to say, because he was ultimately the guy who finished off that no-hitter. He was called out on strikes to end the 9-0 loss on Monday. He was the guy to get the first hit in the win on Tuesday. But yeah, overall, I think the inconsistency is showing its head.
The inconsistency is consistent. Yes.
Yes. In I guess the dichotomy of these two games, I will say, as much fun as it was to watch that first inning, yes, Evan Carter got a solo home run. I think it was in the third inning to continue the offense. But other than Evan Carter there, the offense went silent yet again for several innings. Mm-hmm. And to your point, it allowed Houston, who's been a pretty good offense, especially through this last stretch, to come back into this game. Like, they had to put Jacob Latz, their closer, into the game because it became a save situation. I don't think anyone saw that coming when they had an 8-run lead after one inning. So, I think the inconsistency in the offense continues to prove itself. The 8 runs was awesome. The fact that they were able to add on later on Zeke Duran, I think it was either an RBI single, 2 RBI single, I'm not sure, but they did add on later in the game. But yeah, wow. Improbable.
Well, I mean, they scored 10 against, I think it was the Rockies only about a week or so ago. I think it may have been Tuesday to Tuesday.
It feels like a month ago. But
yes. But so, we've seen them have breakouts, and we saw this a lot of last year. Yeah. There'd be games like this where, there it is. There's the breakout. Here they go.
Yes.
And
it's fool's gold.
There it goes again.
So my question, getting back to the vocal aspect of this, because that was one of the symptoms I think a lot of people pointed to over the last couple of years, and it's not putting Simeon down, but that there was leadership issues in the clubhouse where it was chemistry or people pointing fingers, maybe not pointing fingers, but not speaking up. How much do you think Nimmo's vocal attitude has changed that clubhouse? And also, did it only work for one inning, and can you bottle that the same way we need to have Kumar Rocker have an opener every time he pitches?
I think Nimmo's personality, if you will, is a little bit more warm and welcoming, and a little just more I think he can relate to a lot of different guys, right? And Corey Seager is objectively one of the best players, if not the best player on the team. He's obviously injured right now, and before he got injured, he was not doing great at the plate. But I think vocal-wise, he's more of a lead by example type, whereas I think Nimmo has a little bit of both. And they obviously just bring different skill sets. But not only do I think his voice and what we heard from the different players was the passion that he brought, not only to those conversations, but to how he approaches the game every day was a big piece of this. To your point about how do you bottle this up, Skip talked about the approach for the guys Monday versus Tuesday, right? Monday, look, the starting pitcher they were going against, known for his walks. So their approach was to be more patient at the plate. Don't go swinging at pitches outside of the zone.
Yeah.
Their approach in game 2 was, no, be aggressive. Be more aggressive. Earlier in the count, take those swings. So I don't think it was just a passionate speech by Brandon Nimmo that changed the course of yesterday. I think it was that in combination with other things, like their approach at the plate, and the fact that they were going against a pitcher who has had good games and then has had not so great
Right.
games.
The Astros pitching in general
it's
has
not
not
great.
been good. Yeah.
So, but also to kind of follow up on that, just from an offensive perspective, how much of there is a mental lull? It's like we just put up 8 runs on the board. You know what I mean? Like under most circumstances, that game is over. You know what I mean? So how much of this is, granted, there are a couple instances over the last couple of years where this Rangers offense was really humming. They'd put 8 up on the board and turn it to 11, turn it to 12, turn it to 14, and those would be the rest of the runs that they score for the rest of the week. But my point in saying that is with a team that's still finding its identity a little bit, how much of this just boils down to they got up, they let off the gas a little bit, and then sat there and realized, oh, we actually need to finish this thing out. And this is more of a learning experience for a core that is still kind of finding its rhythm.
Yeah, I don't know, especially because like even the lineup itself, it changes so much day by day. Who's hitting in what hole, and I think that's a product of the fact that they haven't found any sort of offensive consistency, and Skip is doing all he can to just generate and manufacture runs like they've talked about. I think if anything, it was a momentum boost that they can use. I think today will be a really interesting game to watch.
Yeah.
Because once again, you have Jacob deGrom on the mound who has given up a bunch of runs in his last couple starts. And again, you're coming off of like such different performances offensively. What can we learn to expect from this offense?
And granted, like that dichotomy is not new to Major League Baseball. There are a ton of examples in recent, like what was it? The Orioles that had 30 runs put on them at one time, and it might have been against the Rangers that did it. Yeah, and then the next game, the Orioles won it 2-1. Because the Rangers offense goes silent.
Yeah.
That's how baseball works sometimes. Like it's as much as we talk bounces in hockey, for instance, it's the balls and bats in baseball. So and especially given, if we can pull up VO3 here real quick, where they stand in the AL West, it's like you don't want to keep treading water, but they are still treading water despite all of this.
The entire American League West is now under 500.
Yeah.
If you stack up all of Major League Baseball, the 5 teams in the AL West are 16th, 18th, 21st, 23rd, and 28th in Major League Baseball from a record perspective. All 5 in the bottom half of the league, all 5 under 500. It is a horrible, horrible division. There are now only 3 teams in the entire American League that are above 500 because the division leader in the Central is 500.
Yes.
I'm sorry. No. No. It's the Yankees.
Team.
It's the Yankees and Rays, and then the division leader in the Central, who is now
Guardians.
escaping me. Is it the Guardians right now?
Yes.
They are above 500. It's Chicago that is in second place that is 500.
Right.
So there are 3 teams in the AL that are above 500.
It's not the Mendoza line. It's the White Sox line.
It's also the Mariners being projected to either be in the World Series or win the World Series, and they are half a game back of the Athletics.
Well, that's the crazy part about this, because I feel like whether it's Texas or Seattle, it's like if either one of those 2 teams win, I think a lot of people would look at it like, they have the talent.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they would be a dangerous get in the playoffs. Either it's pitching for Texas or the offense for the Mariners. But you guys mentioned schedule in our little hit here right before midday. Royals coming up right after the Astros, and obviously you got to finish out this series strong. Like, especially after getting swept by the Angels, you do not want to even split with the Astros. If you can take these next 2, take them. But these next 2, you host the Royals at home for a 3-game set. Then you're at St. Louis, which is a tougher-ish draw. They're from the NL Central, and the NL Central's really strong. That's where most of the wins are right now.
Yeah.
But after that, the Guardians, as we just said, a little bit over 500. Then the Royals, Red Sox, and Twins, who are all middling to bad.
Yeah.
So this is a winnable stretch here, basically up through the next month. And even if you go 1-2 against the Cardinals, 1-2 against the Guardians, let's say, the rest of these series are winnable and can give you a chance to really kind of not even get some separation, but find a foothold in a division that is giving you plenty of opportunities to find it.
Because in that stretch, I didn't exactly tally up the exact number of games, but we're talking generally a month. Let's say there's 30 games. Go 17-13, and you're probably leading the division.
Exactly.
Just a little better than 500, and you'll be leading the American League West on July 1st.
I think we thought that they would do better than 3-6 on this road trip.
No question.
They just completed.
They should have.
With
in fairness, 17-13 would put them at 500. They're 4 games under right now.
Right.
So they get to 500, they're okay.
Yeah.
This is a weird discussion, man.
If they get to 500, they'll probably be leading the American League West.
That's just crazy. Like
Baseball.
baseball.